Hello, and welcome to the Living Systems Collaboratory. My name is John Crawford, and I am honored to be one of the co-founders of the Living Systems Collaboratory, which is a new initiative in which we are bringing together a group of designers and artists who are exploring the development of creative projects related to living systems, where living systems are looking at life as a unified whole and looking at various aspects of it. And in addition to working on the projects, we've been studying the living systems philosophy. Today, as part of our Creator Spotlight series, I'm very pleased to be bringing you a conversation with Akiko Ogawa. And her work as an artist is a personal and shared journey of self-mastery, altered states of consciousness, and flow states. She portrays themes of the unified field, quantum physics, and portals. And she's been inspired to portray 21st century notions of sublimity from romanticism and is working philosophically as well. She aims to guide like-minded thinkers and doers into entering meditative states of creation. So her work is somatically based, and it's been really a great privilege for me to see how your work has developed over time. So I'm going to turn the mic over to you, Kiko, so that you can talk about your Seed Share project platform and anything else you want to tell us about your art and design and community building work. And then I'll be back in a few minutes for a discussion about some aspects of your work. So the floor is yours. Take it away.
Thank you so much, John. It's so funny because the description that you mentioned was actually, my artwork, which is very much what I like to do in my personal sort of time. But at the same time, Seed Share, this project is also a very sort of personal project, but it's more sort of aimed towards a sort of humanitarian environmental perspective on how we might apply these notions of a unified awareness of ourselves. So Seed Share is really a project that is sort of like an outcome of this convergence between my artwork. That like the ideas, the higher order ideas of my artwork, as well as with how we can apply this non-linear thinking in how we intuitively create art and how we sort of tap into that creative intelligence. And sort of my project is basically like a way of exploring how we can create that sort of experience as well, with not just in the visual side of things, but also in the sort of community element behind the social experience of creating ecological societies. I don't know if that was very articulate, but basically Seed Share is trying to sort of create that pathway so that ecological societies are basically more so a possibility. So a lot of my influence is definitely coming from that very utopian sort of paradigm that I really connect with on a personal level. And I believe that by putting that energy out there in terms of this work, it will sort of create those pathways, whether they do actually materialize or not. But yeah, this is my sort of take at trying to create that pathway, and it's very fitting for the theme of regen era. So I'm really hoping that this project will materialize beautifully and blossom with the next Design Science Decade and with the Living Systems Collaboratory. So yeah, I'll speak a little bit more about my project for the next 12 minutes. So SeedShare is a platform aimed at facilitating the collective intelligence between ecosystem and permaculture communities. And we're focusing on the seed saving and conservation side of things rather than the industrial agricultural side of cultivating food. And of course, that this SeedShare is basically a response to the systemic problems that exist in our society. There's increasing corporate control of our seed industry, and it's due to the sort of pattern of profit maximization and also control and greed over monetary resources over the natural world and biodiversity. So what SeedShare is aiming to do is to sort of stop and reverse this process. Not stop entirely, and that's impossible, but hopefully, start creating that pocket of, systemic shifts over time so that the whole world moves towards this paradigm. So what we're trying to do, what SeedShare is aiming to do is to move us away from this over-reliance on the global food system and to look towards solving it systemically in a non-linear way. That's not just to do with like a platform, but it's to do with behavior change, social change. It's to do with technological innovation. It's to do with consciousness. So I came into the Living Systems Collaboratory with a very vague idea of what SeedShare could be. And I was part of this collective called the Hypergroove Collective that I started with a few of my friends. And out came, through the process of talking with people and collaborating and talking about, different theories of living systems, it just became a lot more clear like that what we were doing is very possible. And out came SeedShare and a project called Hive. Hive is another platform that we're working on, which aims to allow these communities to collaborate more effectively. So it's more focused on the protocols and the platform that would allow that, whereas SeedShare is mostly focused on the conservation side and the ecosystem restoration side. So SeedShare is an online platform, and so what we aim to do is to create a shared marketplace and a seed bank that is distributed and works with these local economies, and these local economies can then use their information, which they sort of accumulate, whether that might be about the species, the indigenous varieties, the heritage crops that belong to the land, basically working on these ideas mimetically and building on them and creating like a knowledge reserve, like a seed bank, and then sort of kind of working with the local community to then make them more interoperable as well with different forms of governance, whether that might be the local sort of governmental policies or the regional, depending on the country and the context of that and that political or sociological environment. So we wanted to be able to work with all global communities around the world, and we would like to create a shared accounting system so that there is sort of mutual aid and mutual support that's given to these sort of communities. So we basically aim to work with with farmers and indigenous communities, but one thing that came up about this project is that they might not be as keen to use the technology. But the thing is, a lot of people these days, farmers especially, are already using platforms like WhatsApp and Twitter to connect with your buyers and to already create a bartering system that works for themselves, for their community. So what we're seeing is that there is this desire to sort of have these tools, these technological tools, to bring people together and to work together in a very locally resilient way. So overall, CHA's move, what CHA is trying to do is to help us move from extractive to regenerative food systems. We want to work with the distributed collective intelligence of these communities, and we also want to move towards kinder economic incentives, so that the seeds that we use are not corporate seeds, and they're seeds that are open pollinated and openly sourced locally and ground up by the communities. So yeah, we aim to sort of develop the technology worldwide so that all bioregional communities can have their own sort of platform where they can come together, and whether that might be through a smartphone or just a normal website browser that they can access, so that they can all sort of work together and conserve bioregions. And a friend of mine did a pilot test of what this could be like. And these are just a few slides sort of explaining a little bit more about what CHA is. Yeah, so CHA is also trying to create that abundance-based system, so that we're not re-incentivizing more greed and more extraction, because that's what's killing biodiversity. What we want to do is to restore biodiversity through an abundance-based system, where seeds are naturally abundant. If you plant a seed, more will spring up, and the cycle continues. And that's that non-linearity that we should sort of work towards. So yeah, and a lot of communities these days are becoming more aware of the food system, and you have indigenous communities sharing saved urban pollinated seeds for many generations. So yeah, we want to sort of create that feel of a gift economy, where local economies can feel like they can participate in gift, and not feel like that the global sort of landscape is continuously exploiting them. So that's the direction that the project is going to go. I feel, in a really good way. I feel like there's a lot of tools and technologies now that is enabling more sort of collective intelligence. I've been kind of observing the space. Yeah, I think one of the key things about CHA is its mapping and categorization. It's peer-to-peer network. Yeah, I think that is basically the end of my presentation, and I do want to quickly share the website that we have just before I finish, if that's okay, John.
Totally fine. Yeah, we have lots of time. So just go ahead and bring up the website when ready, and we'll show it to everyone.
Thank you. Okay. So yeah, I've got the website here. So this is very simple sort of prototype that we've got right now. Yeah, it's just quite self-explanatory, hopefully. If not, let me know. Any feedback would be good. So we have already created a map displaying the seeds that are basically being shared. And obviously this isn't going to be the final design, but we want the initial idea to sort of be represented like you can just go on a platform and you can find your nearest plant breeder or your nearest seed distributor, and this can work for plant breeders, any grower, any community grower, or any consumer that might want to have access to these seeds. So this is the platform that enables that visualization of the seeds being shared. And so yeah, I guess that's it for now. I can also quickly just show my artwork if that.
Sure, love to see some.
Okay. Oh, this is. Yeah, because I don't think I really spoke much about my artwork at all with the with the Living Systems program and the design science program, I've just been mostly focused on this particular project. But yeah, my artwork is, as you mentioned earlier, very much connected to the 21st century notions of the sublime. Like in the Romanticist period, you had artists like William Blake and Turner that would paint like very sort of awe-inspiring images of nature, and they were very much appreciating, being quite romantic about the natural world. And sort of my sort of take and my sort of practice is, especially with this painting, is aimed towards the sort of like the quite scientifically, the very postmodern, metamodern feeling of what is basically would be the equivalent to what I guess William Blake would be responding to the scientific developments and of rationalization. And yeah, so this is my response. It's aimed at the cosmic, and it's in response towards the cosmic unity and in everything. And yeah, and definitely just the scientific advancements has made me respond this way. And this was mostly an intuitive painting. Yeah, so I guess that's all I would like to share.
Well, thank you so much, Akiko. And yes, this you've been on a really interesting journey. And I did first encounter you as a fine artist, and have been really fascinated to see the development of your Seed Share project. I wonder if there's anything you can say about how these two aspects of your practice interrelate and connect. How did you get from the identification as someone who is predominantly creating fine art, and I know you perform as well to some extent, to someone who is in the group that is founding this important collective collaborative activity with SeedShare? How do these things connect for you?
Yeah, it's really funny because it's quite random. Yeah, I've always been quite artistic and very much sort of create artworks very intuitively. And it was through this process of painting that made me sort of more aware of the non-linearity of myself, my body, and as well as the emergence of something on a canvas, and the creative sort of power or intelligence that is within all of us. So it's through that process of becoming more aware of that creative intelligence. It sort of made me more aware, made me more interested in the sciences, or like a more practical way of sort of um, moving, yeah, moving just beyond the visual. Just thinking about how like that could also be materialized, or be, because it was basically a behavior change for me doing art. And I got really interested in biomimicry as well. I think my exploration into biomimicry, um, the natural world, and looking at nature as a way to um, apply the solutions in there towards like um, current problems. It was through that process of discovery of biomimicry that sort of led me to understanding how that is basically nonlinear thinking, um, and nonlinear, yeah, just ways of being.
Well, building on that, one of the things that we've been investigating with regard to living systems is understanding that these are cognitive entities to some extent, and they have an inherent tendency to structure themselves in nonlinear ways. And these nonlinear network patterns seem to be capable of performing highly complex functions with minimum effort. It strikes me that that is also to some extent the definition of a seed, that the seed itself is able to grow into something that doesn't resemble the seed in any way, but somehow within the structure of the seed, within the non-linear network patterns inherent in the seed, we somehow have the ability to perform this highly complex function of growing a plant or a tree. So I'm wondering if that has any resonance for you, if that's something you've thought of, and you would love to hear your thoughts about non-linearity as applied to the functions of seeds.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that's sort of why I focused on seeds, because it's if you want to get to like the root, or if you kind of observe like non-linear systems as like a torus, if you want to get into like the root of why we, how we cultivate food, or the food systems, I think of seeds and how, yeah, they are non-linear, um, just by the way it just, emergence of plants and life just sort of continuously, it's a continuous process of, it's cyclical, and yeah, definitely just, um, in my creative practice, just sort of sitting with that awareness of how things are going inwards and outwards in a non-linear process. It's made me more aware of that in the everyday world. um, Even in especially in the natural world, because the natural world just shows you how things just are, and they just don't, yeah, just how things are just natural. And the seed really gave me that sort of design sort of idea, just like knowing that process, that non-linear process was, yeah.
Love it. That is
Yeah.
such a wonderful connection. Another aspect of your work that I find inspiring relates to another aspect that we've been looking at in our study of living systems, which is that, well, the role of people, the role of human beings, as that humans are an interconnected and inseparable and integral part of all of these non-linear living systems that sometimes we ignore or give short shrift to. And one of the things that is most striking to me about SeedShare is that, yes, it deals with seeds, but essentially it's a human centered environment. You're really finding ways that people can can become more connected with their own inseparable and interconnected um, relationships with the living earth, and the growth and the germination of seeds, and the propagation of seeds over time. Um, I'm sure that's intentional. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are about how this has an impact on people over time, and how you see this evolving.
Yeah, I definitely agree that, it's inclusive in that aspect. I did consider a lot that, we do need, people are very much disconnected, from the natural world, and we can learn a lot from these indigenous communities. We can learn a lot from people that are already sort of quite connected with the land, and quite connected to that nonlinear, um, process of, feedback loops between the natural world as well as with the community, and with the stories behind it. Um, and yeah, and also just by exploring I didn't really speak much about the technology behind SeedShed, but the technology behind that is very much human centric. It's focused on the well-being of the agent within the network, rather than it just being data centric. So just the actual, like, capital or resource. It's all about the agents and how they choose to, um, interact with the system. So yeah, it's very much inclusive, and very much, if you think about seeds and how diverse they are and global they are, we need everyone to be involved in the regeneration of land and ecosystems. And yeah, and I think it just really helps with that understanding how we're all sort of one species, but very ethnically diverse, culturally diverse, and just like the seeds are. So yeah.
I love it. I love the feeling of the diversity of seeds and the diversity of the people and how this connects through your application of technology in this very human-centered way. So wonderful work, Akiko. We're so happy that you've been a part of the Living Systems Collaboratory, battling time zones and all
Yeah.
kinds of other potential impediments. I've learned a lot by watching you develop and grow over time, and I can't wait to see more of what's coming from your work with SeedShare, as well as all the other work you've been doing. So thanks again for being part of the collaboratory.
Thank you so much, John. I'm so grateful, and I feel very at home with this community, and I'm really looking forward to more, yeah, just more, miracles and magic to happen.
Us too. Well, thanks again.
Okay, amazing. Thank you.
So that is another in our series of Living Systems Collaboratory Creator Spotlight presentations. We hope that you'll keep tuned and find our other presentations. They're all available online in the same place you found this, whether that be YouTube, Facebook, or other sites along the web. The Living Systems Collaboratory is produced and sponsored by the Buckminster Fuller Institute and the Design Science Studio, which is a wonderful program coming out of Buckminster Fuller Institute, also with habRitual and the Emergent Media Research Group at University of California, Irvine. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope to see you soon in another Living Systems Collaboratory presentation.